everyone. We are the Bry and Samua Show. I'm Samua.
I'm Bry, and we are super excited to be here.
So, welcome to our very first episode. Ask that you buckle in, hang tight, and make sure you come back because there'll be more fun to be had.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been looking at this for a while now, and to be sitting here talking to all of you, we're so excited.
Yes, it has actually been like literally over a year in the making. And life has been lifing, and we have had lessons to learn about the podcast world. And we want to make sure that right off the bat, we brought you guys something awesome. So here we are, episode one. And what we wanted to do for this episode is just kind of introduce our friendship to you and give you a little bit of a backstory because we really want this podcast to not be about you tuning in and watching our show. We really want it to be a community that we create. And we want you to feel like you're pulling up a chair with us, whether you're having a margarita, a glass of wine, a mocktail, or a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. We want you to feel like you're here with us, that we become friends and you get to know us. And so we felt that in order to do that, we wanted you to know us.
We're going to have some social media that we'll share with you, and we'd love for you to interact, give us feedback, let us know maybe some ideas that you'd like to see us do. But we definitely want to interact with you, talk to you, share things with you, and also have you share with us.
So to get us started with our story, Bry is literally one of my best friends. Maybe a little bit unconventional
Yeah.
because as you look at us, we have different age demographics and people although I will say that especially in the last, like, 5 years, I don't think people guess on that anymore. She's aging in reverse and I'm catching up.
We're having fun, but I will say that we'll talk about maybe how I'm aging in reverse a little bit later, and maybe one of the
More
yeah, one of the
other
other
episodes,
episodes.
so make sure you come back. But yeah, we met through church and you started coming to our church at Grace. And I don't remember how you even came to this small group. Did you just like pick us at random? Did I invite you? I don't remember. Do you
I think
remember?
what happened is we were looking for a small group, and, I believe that it was, one of the gentlemen that was in the group talked to Brad, because Brad was in the band at the time, and said that they needed some people and we needed a group, and so it just kinda met like that.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember about Bri coming to my house for small group, this was before my gluten free days, was she brought this monkey bread.
Oh,
And I had
yeah.
never had monkey bread, and I was hooked on monkey bread. But
Mhm.
then sadly, like 6 months later, I went gluten free, so that wasn't very
No more monkey
helpful.
bread,
I've been
yeah.
tortured ever since.
I totally restructured what I was bringing to our house at that
Dreams
point.
of monkey bread. But yeah, so Bri was at my house a couple times a month, I think we met,
Yeah,
not every
we
week.
did.
And just casual, it was a large, small group meeting, so it wasn't one-on-one or anything. I think we had 8 to 9 couples at the
We had a
time.
lot, like, at one point, we had, like, 10. It was a huge small group.
And we did have obviously some deep and candid conversations in that environment, but it's not like we had one-on-one meetings. But then within a year's time, if not less, my daughter was diagnosed with autism. And at the time, she was 3.5. And needless to say, things were kind of turned upside down. Starting right around 2.5. So it'd been about a year that I started having issues with her. I don't remember if it was something I talked about in the group or not, but I definitely knew she was going to get that diagnosis. I had been doing my research and based on her behaviors, and we had a huge wait list to go through speech therapy first, and then a huge wait list and time to wait to see the specialist to get the diagnosis. So that really building a lot of time there of getting to, and she kept getting worse. She was going downhill. So that took a while. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me that makes you such an awesome person is that we really weren't close. And then Naomi gets this diagnosis, and Bry spearheaded this whole movement to get a group of people, mostly our small group, I think it
Yeah.
was, to come in and do we wanted to be able to sell the house because it was by water. And that was one of the issues that unfortunately is still a huge issue for families and children with autism being by water. And they're just attracted to it. And like one split second and your worst nightmare can happen. And I remember you just spearheading this group to come in, everything from meals to the babysitting for the children to all these little handyman jobs and things like that for this one long weekend at our house.
And we didn't have kids, so I remember this one time we were sitting there and everybody from small group kept leaving, and the next thing Brad and I knew, we were by ourselves with kids, and we were like, "What do we even say to these children?" Because they were little at the time, and at the time too, what I remember that was so hard is autism was new. Like, right now, you hear about it all the time, But back then, it wasn't such a conversation. It wasn't something that you heard about. So the research was really important and the funding of things was limited.
Very.
So we started talking about that because there are so many things you need to do at that young age for Naomi in order for her to thrive. If you wait, you lose those chances.
Yeah, the window gets smaller. The
Mhm.
funny thing is, it's been 15 years that we have been friends and Naomi's been well, longer than that, but that Naomi's been diagnosed. And though people know more about though people hear way more about autism and the numbers from when Naomi was diagnosed, I believe it was like 1 in 148, I think, and now it's 1 in 36. It's amazing to me though how today most people, including people in the medical professional, don't really know autism.
Yeah.
Like they know
Yeah.
about it, they know it's happening, they know that it's these quirky
Mhm.
kids or these behaviors, but they still don't really know, which is a whole other topic that will also be another
Right.
episode, I'm sure, at one point.
Right.
But the next thing that really kindled our friendship was actually American Idol,
Yep.
which then led to Keith Urban.
Oh, Keith Urban. How can you not bond over Keith Urban?
And the only reason I didn't like country music at the time, had not really gotten into it, just not part of the cultural that I grew up in between being Brazilian and all of that. But I remember watching the American Idol finale or one of the final episodes where they bring in like actual famous people to do their songs. And I think they did a duet with the
Yeah,
finalists or
they
something.
did.
Kiss the Girl by Keith Urban was the song, and Keith Urban was there. And I loved this song. And it was before Spotify. So
Right.
I remember YouTubing
Oh
to
my
like find the
gosh.
song because you
Right.
couldn't just listen to it on the radio. I didn't even know what stations around here were country, and you couldn't just Spotify it, so I YouTubed it. And I remember playing that song all the time, like, the rest of that summer, and then we get because Naomi was diagnosed on June 2nd. I remember American Idol finale was sometime later in June, and then, so that we go through that, and then I think one of the small groups, we must have been having a conversation, and somehow it must have come up that I love this song, and by default, really liked Keith Urban.
Yeah. So I started looking to see when Keith Urban was going to be touring and found a date. Now, he wasn't near us. He was going to be in Indiana. But I mean, a good road trip's always nice, right?
That was actually my first girls' road trip, which was
I
fun.
don't think I knew that. Really?
Yeah. My only other girls' trip that whole time was when I was 20. I did a girls' Miami spring break trip. A
Oh my
little bit different of a
gosh.
girls' trip there going to
Yeah.
Miami at 20. But yeah, that was my first like girls' road trip.
Wow. Well, we went to Indianapolis to see him, and another friend of mine was there with her 2 girls, and so
Yeah.
we were able to kinda hang out with them, but it was so great, but I mean, we rode there, rode back, and I think that's when we really got to know each other so much better.
Yeah. And then I remember, and again, you're definitely, and I always say this, I've said this to Leo. I feel like you're one of my wisest friends, probably. Always have such great advice and insight. So I think we were rounding out this summer where you had helped me with all this housework and all these logistical things, and then I had just finalized because that was like end of August. I feel I had just finalized Naomi's therapies and fighting with insurance and getting things covered and all these different things. So it was kind of like this letdown period now, like everything is summer. And I think you recognize like you need something else to keep
Let's
your
go.
brain busy. And you started talking about running the full marathon at Disney one time that you did it with team in training. What year
Mhm.
did you do it?
We were driving home, and we were talking about limited funding for autism and how much she was struggling with trying to get things covered, let alone even get them to entertain covering some of the things that were so needed for her daughter. And I ran a marathon in 2024 or 2004, and I did it with Team in Training, and
So,
yeah,
little side note there. You were the second person that I personally knew that had run a marathon.
gosh,
My first person was my friend Ashley Brady, who lived. I was pregnant with Isaac, and she lived in the apartments upstairs from us. And like at one point, I think she's a year or two younger than me, but at that time, I remember her telling me about running the Boston Marathon, which I lived in Boston since I was 6 years old, and I don't think I knew the Boston Marathon existed
oh my
until
god,
after I started running. So how pathetic is that? But just wasn't a thing that was on my family's radar. I didn't know it
right,
was
right,
happening. I wasn't in Boston, like every second Monday of April, whenever the heck it is.
Sure.
So I literally didn't even know this marathon existed. But she was telling me about it, and I remember standing there, like, listening to her story, but having this sort of not out of body experience, but, like, being like, "Oh, wow, like, people who run marathons are real people? They actually exist? Like,
Yeah,
how does a person in my world run a marathon?" Because in my mind, it was like a movie star or, it's like a little kid who, like,
right.
grows up with Disney princesses, like, you realize at one point, like, they're not real. And
Right,
that's
right.
kinda how I felt about marathon runners. So then you became the second person that was like a thrill in my head, like,
Let's
"Wait, I
go.
can touch you? You're a real human being who ran 26.2
Mhm.
miles? Like, how?"
Yeah. So we talked about it, and I said, I bet you team and training was one fundraising opportunity, but I knew they had more. So we started looking things up and found out
On
that
our BlackBerries.
on our I miss my BlackBerry.
Or
Seriously,
iPhones.
how many of you had to give up BlackBerries? I had a red one.
Yeah,
It was like
maybe
candy
iPhones had
apple.
just come out, but they were still like 5 gazillion dollars.
Yeah, and they were
So,
flips.
well
Yeah, no, we were not interested. But anyway, okay, I digress. But we looked it up and realized that Autism Speaks was a group that we could partner with, and we could raise some money and we could do a race. And thinking about this somewhat, if it was in August, the race that we did was probably what, in January?
Yeah.
So we didn't have long to train or get ready
No.
or anything.
So, we decided to do the half. We were looking it up while driving back and came up with this idea that we would do the half and we would do it with Autism Speak so that we could, as you said, just be a
Mhm.
part of the solution. And I think for me, you really recognize like I needed something productive and positive to keep me kind of moving forward now that the dust was settling on all this work that I had done for
Right.
her. And so we came home, talked about it. We had another good friend of ours at the time, Michelle, just jumped on the bandwagon and we signed up through
Yeah.
through not it wasn't team in training, but just
Autism
Autism
Speaks.
Speaks
Mhm.
and started to do some fun fundraisers. We had a bowling night and all this kind of stuff, fundraise all the money we needed to fundraise and showed up in January to do this race. And I remember we showed up thinking we were so cool because we thought to bring like Mickey Mouse ears and Minnie ears to run with.
We were not
And then like we were getting on the bus and a couple people come in with like really cute shirts that were Disney themed, and then we had the glittery running skirts.
so many
Then people
costumes.
come out with these, like, full-blown costumes, and
Right.
we're like, "I'm sorry, our ears are, like, kind of
They were very weak.
weak." And we survived that weekend, and I really went into that thinking, "I hate running." I still hate running.
Yeah.
And I remember in high school, like, they used to do that fit test every year, the mile fit test, and I remember a couple years being like, "No, I'm gonna try this year, I'm gonna do good." And I would run like a 14-minute mile and still get side stitches. So this was not my thing. And I remember thinking like I'm going to do this one race, be done and never run again. And I ended up before we left that weekend, we had committed to doing the full the following year only because we wanted to be able to up our costume game.
Well, and
Like
I just remember we started the race together because the Disney race, if you don't have any races under your belt, then you start in the back. And it's kind of a scary place to be because there's time limits that you have to think about. But we decided that I didn't want her to be held back because our racing was a little bit different in how fast we go. And I just remember seeing a ponytail running off, and I'm like, "You go, girl." And she ended up doing so, so good. We both finished, and we had such a good time.
we
It was
did.
just a great race, and
So
that's why we went back.
yep. So we went on, we kept doing some races together and other life things and
Mhm.
hosting Zumbathons and fundraising for autism. And then we found a different organization called Train for Autism, which I don't know
Yep.
if they exist anymore, but they were a great avenue to be able to fundraise because
Mhm.
they had the 501c. So you didn't have to have your own nonprofit but what you fundraise through them and they took a percentage to run, to be able to run their operation as well as to fund their own organization or their own autism choices. But then they would actually let you distribute the funds to places you want it locally. And I remember we distributed to Fieldstone Farms and paid for 3 different students locally to be able to do
Amazing.
a summer camp. We sent it to I don't remember which one it was, but one of the local autism chapters to pay for some swim lessons.
That was huge.
Yeah,
Love
so
that.
we did it was really cool because we went from funding, I think a couple of the races, we gave all the money to, train for Autism Speaks, which, it's out there, right? It's helping the collective, but we
Right.
don't really know. And then with not team in training, but Train for Autism, that charity, we were then able to really direct where the funds went,
So
and
great.
that was awesome. And whoever donated and things like that still were able to get the 501c tax write off and all of
Mhm.
that because Train for Autism was a 501c. So that was really cool. And then, we went through a couple years of that and hanging out as much as we could and
We
ended
did
up,
the oils, don't forget the
yes,
oils.
the essential oils.
Heavy into essential oils.
Yes, totally my fault because
Oh, it's
just
great though.
trying to clean up Naomi's environment was one of the
Mhm.
things that I learned about and things like that. And then we ended up having some bumps in the road. So it's not like our friendship hasn't been tried and
Yeah,
tested.
for real.
And we both had a mutual friend that ended up in retrospect. We didn't, neither one of us
At
recognized
the
this at the
time, you
time.
don't see it.
But definitely, hindsight being 2020, there was definitely some toxic traits and
Yep.
behaviors there and ended up kind of pulling us apart. And I think because I was not the squeaky wheel, you just kind of went along with the path of least resistance and
Yeah.
got dragged along there. So we went a couple years
Yeah,
without talking at all
right. You
because
sure
I
did.
left the church. So we didn't have that connection anymore.
Right.
I think it was just a little bit out of sight, out of mind. We didn't see each other on a regular basis. And you guys were still at the same church. And
Yeah.
so we ended up just there was no, like, argument or drama or
It just sort
explosive.
of and that happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You think about your friends and you may not talk to them for a while, but then when you reconnect, it's like you never lost time. And
exactly.
I feel like that was us. We lost that time. Life got in the way. Things happened,
Yeah.
and then we reconnected again. And
I
it
think
was
we
like,
reconnected through Disney again, wasn't it?
I think
Like,
so.
I think by happenstance, we ran into each other at a race.
Right.
Is that what happened?
I think what might be the case.
Yeah. It was one of those
Yeah.
random, like, "We're here running a Disney. Oh, look who's here!"
Right,
Because
right, right.
amazingly, even though there's, like, 30,000
You
runners,
still run into
you
people
do
you
run into a
know.
lot of people that you
It's so
know.
crazy. Yeah.
And then from there, we got to, get back together and,
Mm.
you know, like you said, picked up where we left off. And I think one of the cool things about being around you is that, like, I've never felt like there was just something about you that, especially when it was ever just the two of us, I felt like I could always, the filters could come off. I
I
could have
agree.
candid conversations. I didn't have to think about how I would word something or say something and have you misconstrue it, or judge. There was just something about, and maybe it all started because we had those 2 long car rides back and forth from
Yeah.
Indiana, but there was always this sense of authenticity and, like, a safe space that you created.
I I agree. I think it was both of us though, because when you think about it, we don't always agree on things, and that's okay. But we can have a good, honest conversation about pretty much anything respectfully. We can joke about it, and give each
Yeah.
other a hard time about it. But neither of us ever leave the conversation annoyed or like, you know,
Hurt, like,
hurt.
which is where the idea for the Bry and Samua Show came from.
Exactly.
Because it is so easy to just pick up with you wherever, even now and even after we rekindled. I mean, we'll go 6 months before we can get together in person. And
Exactly.
it is just, because life is crazy and we schedule and then one of us has to cancel or it takes forever, whatever. Usually it's my fault.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. And even though we're not necessarily always together, when things have gone wrong, which a lot of things in my life have blown up, you've always been the first friend that I've been like, blah, 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 like this just
Same.
happened.
Same.
And, between me choosing that I needed to end my first marriage, me disclosing to you, that I met somebody new, like all of that, like it was always like, this is the person I can have this conversation with.
Right.
And,
Right.
and always because it wasn't even that I knew you'd agree with me because you're my friend. Because, like you said, we have disagreed and
Absolutely.
we talk through those. And that is actually more like I wanted you to be my sounding board. A
Mhm.
lot of times, some of these harder things going through, it's like, oh, I got to talk to Bri. I'm just going to tell her. I'm just going to, like, mind dump on her because I want to hear her feedback. I want to hear the devil's advocate, the challenges, and
Absolutely.
sometimes even if you kind of agree with me or we agree, you do such a great job of giving me a couple other ways to think about it too, just to, like, double check it, right? That double blind
Right.
study,
And I
kinda
think
like
the
that.
same thing of you because just from everything that we've gone through, we can talk about it. And I might say something and you give me that look. And I already know the look, right? The look is, I'm not really quite sure that you want to look at it that way. And I'm like, what? and we can just sit down and talk about it, and then a lot of times I'll stick to my guns, but there are times when I'm like, "You know what? You're absolutely right." But that's what friendship is.
Yeah.
That's what friendship is. It's being open to that, conversation and that trust that you have with each other. Because I trust her with anything, and I think that's so important that you have that with somebody. Have a friend that does that with you. That's so
Yes.
important.
And nowadays it's so hard,
Oh my gosh, it's yeah.
especially in the last 5, 6 years or so, there's
Mhm.
just been such a cultural shift that unfortunately a lot of people, even with close family members,
Yep.
even with close friendships, like I know many people who have lost significant people that they had deep
Yeah.
ties to because they saw differently on, all these different issues that have been coming up. And we kind of lost the ability to either agree to disagree or respectfully hear the other person's opinion and
Mhm.
then come to either a new conclusion or, like you said, sometimes be like, no, I'm sticking to my guns, but I can understand why you have your thought.
Absolutely.
And I respect you for your thought, but you're not changing my mind today, kind of thing. And so we wanted to create this
Yep.
environment, this community. It's going to be a lifestyle based podcast. So we'll be talking about everything and anything,
Yep.
which is why we would love for you guys to connect with us via our website, via social media. And we'll do polls or you can submit questions and things like that, different ideas so that we really want you to feel like you're sitting right here with us. And it's a safe environment to just think and talk through
Yeah.
some of not only cultural things, but just life.
Life, because life gets so hard, and if you don't have a place to express what's happening and get like, bounce your ideas off somebody else, it builds up and builds up, and it's not good for you at all. So we would love for you to be able to come here, and we would be able to talk through things and debate healthily about things, and really just talk through anything that comes up. We don't wanna limit ourselves, some of the podcasts are so
We'll talk
niche.
sports, Browns fans or
Oh my
not,
god.
because who wants to be a Browns fan except for you?
Well, I did
That's another episode too.
just real quickly, I ordered a Baker jersey from Tampa Bay, and then when I wore it, they lost, so I can't wear it again.
Maybe the problem with the Browns is that you're their
I
fan.
think it is. I think I'm gonna have to totally, I'm gonna have to truly, switch gears to the Steelers,
Oh,
and
there you
then
go.
that would
There
be
you go.
perfect, right? But no, so it really is a place where we want you to feel safe and feel like you can talk about anything, and you don't have to agree with us, and we would
No.
love if you didn't.
And we really just don't want people out there feeling alone.
Yeah,
Whatever you're going to learn more about us, and between the two of us, we have
yeah,
probably encountered every single hardship, difficult,
mhm.
traumatic thing that life can throw your way. Between divorce, death of parents, I mean everything. Poverty, sexual abuse, like
Suicide.
everything, suicide.
Mm,
We've had that personally touch us in some way or another throughout our lives. But we just want you to know that you're seen, that whatever difficulty you're going through, another day is coming and that we are going to be here to help you work through that. My husband always says that two things can be true at once. And one of the lessons I've been learning as an adult, because for some reason as a kid, I don't think I was specifically told this, but just the vibe from both within my home and maybe outside, we kind of have this sense that like there's an arrival point for life, right? Like
oh,
if you get on the right train, if you make all the right decisions, then you get to a point where like now it's just uphill from
it's
here. Like
perfect.
life is just
Don't have to worry
clicking.
about anything.
And I think a lot of people kind of think that, even if
Yeah,
it's subconsciously. And
yeah.
we're here to tell you that life can be wonderful and simultaneously a shit show. Um,
Right.
and that for most of us, I think that's where we're at. Like, especially nowadays where we see social media and we assume that like, oh, this person has it all together or this person's life is so perfect. Like, I am here to tell you, no, whatever you think is perfect, maybe one area of their life is going really well right now, but there's two or three areas that there's probably little fires happening. So we just want to go through all those conversations and
I
be
think
your friend carrying through life.
I think Facebook and some of the social medias has just presented itself like that. You see the pictures, the flowers, the cards, all the trips and all that stuff, but behind the scenes, you have no idea what's
Yeah.
happening. And that's really what we wanna talk about is how do you maneuver those things? You can put the show on, but at some point, you've gotta step back from the show and deal with the reality of it.
So stay tuned. Make sure you come back. We're going to be releasing episodes every 2 weeks. And again, it'll be a hodgepodge between specific topics. We're going to have expert guests come in when we go into specific topics to really bring you some knowledge and good information. And then other episodes, just it's going to be about lifing.
Yep.
So,
Or and how life can suck, but we're gonna make it better or not. We'll
yep.
figure it out.
So join us again. We look forward to seeing you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your time. We'll see you soon.